This is the center. This is where most of Ghana's COVID-19 patients are being held. I must say that in Ghana, I am the first person to speak to someone who went into self-isolation. Now, when I got back to the office, I was asked not to enter into the newsroom, not even the newsroom, not to enter the building. You know, just as I ended the call with my senior colleague in the office, my wife also, her call came through. And what she told me was this: do not come home.
Hi guys, you're welcome to another episode of Behind the Frontline on KWABENA TV, telling the untold stories of storytellers in the face of COVID-19 pandemic. You don't forget to subscribe to this channel and also share this video for others to also enjoy. Don't also forget to like, press the notification button so that you get notified anytime a new episode is uploaded. Let's get to know more about our journalist for today. So let's now speak to Latif. Hi, Alaji.
Hello.
Yes, you're welcome to KWABENA TV.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Now, one kasawa bro, Alaji, because I remember how. Yeah, but it was not easy. You went through a lot with that experience.
Yeah.
And so you're one of the journalists who has been through a lot when it comes to assault and all
Unfortunately.
that. Exactly. And I see all those awards behind you, and you well deserve it. Congratulations. Yes.
Thank you.
So let's talk about COVID-19. How has it been for you personally in this pandemic?
Personally, it's been traumatic. It's been challenging. It has gotten us to stretch ourselves beyond the limits. I mean, because now we work in two teams. Initially, the whole team goes to the office, you work, so the workload is shared among yourselves. Now, what has happened is that because of social distancing, as part of the protocols to cut the spread of the pandemic, now the team is divided into two. So you go this week, and it's half of the team. So you can imagine the workload is so huge. You have to maneuver to ensure that you deliver within the time. And so, yes, it's been traumatic, it's been challenging, and then the workload has also increased for some of us. Now, let's talk about how it has affected me personally. I must say that in Ghana, I am the first person to speak to someone who went into self-isolation. That was when the last batch of aircraft moved from the United States to Ghana, and then the borders and everything was shut by the president.
Okay, Alaji, so you're talking about someone who voluntarily self-isolated and not one of those who were mandatory, who went under mandatory quarantine.
Mandatory quarantine. No, so this person self-isolated. He wasn't part of those who were put in under mandatory quarantine. Okay. He came back from the US, and so as part of his own ways of preventing the spread, he went on self-isolation or self-quarantine. Now, so I went there, and this was a live broadcast. We didn't show the identity, we didn't show the face of this person. We had to do it so that his identity was shielded. Now, after this interview, I must say, I didn't even finish with the interview, and I got a lot of calls coming in. And guess what? The stigma started right there.
Wow.
And the stigma wasn't from, say, a relative or someone who knows me as a friend. but colleague journalists started stigmatizing against me right in front of this guy who has agreed, who has opened up to speak to us. And the guy at that point also felt terribly bad and sorry for himself for even opening up for us to come and speak to him about COVID-19 and how the situation is affecting the United States, because he was coming from the epicenter, which is New York. And so he was giving us account of how the situation is back in the US and the possibility of him testing positive, even though he hadn't gone into the test at the time. He feared that because he was coming from an epicenter, he could also test positive, and gave us a lot of background. And at that point, he regretted opening up his doors for us to come and speak with him. Because me, as a journalist, I had colleagues who were calling to tell me to disinfect the mic that I used, to disinfect myself, to wash my hand, to use sanitizer. And he was on the phone. This guy was standing just a yard away, and he could hear the voice of my colleague over the telephone. And I had no hand sanitizer. I had no hand sanitizer, Catherine, you can imagine. So I had to just ask him again for hand sanitizer. Can you imagine?
Wow.
I asked him to give me hand sanitizer to sanitize my hand. Then I saw the look in the guy's face, and I even felt sorry for even coming over for that particular interview. That was on the field. Now, when I got back to the office, I was asked not to enter into the newsroom, not even the newsroom, not to enter the building. You know, it was crazy. Then I persisted, and I managed to get into the newsroom. It was late. I mean, it was around 10 p.m. So I went home. The following day, people were not expecting me to come back to the office because I had exposed myself to someone who could test positive for COVID-19.
Oh my God.
But I went to the newsroom. Then it almost degenerated into something else because my senior colleagues were telling me to go back home because I have exposed myself and I could also come out as positive. And I said, Jack, I'm moving no inch. I'm not going nowhere.
Can you imagine?
They're telling me I've exposed myself. You want me to go home and infect my family? That is
exactly.
If indeed
I was
I've exposed myself.
Alaji. So how did your family take it? Because if colleagues at work are scared of you, contaminating them, how did your family receive this news? And
Catherine, let me. Yeah. So my wife called me. You know, just as I ended the call with my senior colleague in the office, my wife also, her call came through. And what she told me was this: do not come home.
Alaji. And
yeah, she told me not to come to the house. Yeah. That day it was hell for me. I mean, everybody was calling to just, yeah, she told me not to come home. That was the message she delivered to me, that I shouldn't come home. I made it to the house, but what I didn't do was to get in there and sleep on the same bed. I had to sleep in the hall, and then the next day I had to quickly take my bath and then left the house. So the issue of stigma, and we've heard stories about how people whose relatives have tested positive have been stigmatized against. And so the issue of stigma is not only to do with me personally or some journalists who might have also gone close to isolation centers or gone to interview people who are perceived to have tested positive and all of that. This issue of stigma is a giant one in the country as people still struggle to deal with the issue of COVID-19. One other challenge journalists are facing has to do with the information flow. You know, when in your intro, you talked about the fact that the numbers keep going up and the recovery rates very slow, death rates also rising bit by bit. As we speak now, we have 4 more deaths because the cases now, we got just the review and the cases have gone up again, and the deaths, we have 4 more deaths and all of that. But at the regional level, those who work within the regions, not in the national capital like me, myself, those who work in the region find it difficult to get access to information. When there is an update, you are in the region, you call the regional directorate of the Ghana Health Service, and they would not give you the information. They expect that this information is piped down to the national capital so that the Ghana Health Service portal would then publish it. And so you are not getting real update as to how many people are having the infection, how many deaths, how many recoveries. All of these are challenging for us as journalists, because we need to put information out there as quickly as possible to get the public informed, so they are able to determine where to go, where not to go, know where the epicenter is, so you be careful about going to those places and all of that. So yes, these two challenges, I must say, it's a bit not helping our cause as journalists in Ghana.
And these may seem like only two, but they are enormous, because this issue of stigma, right from colleagues, people who are expected to know better, people who are expected to know that this is not contagious as it may seem, and there are safety protocols to observe and keep safe, and they are stigmatizing you. That could be very depressing. But did you at any point think of giving up on these stories?
No, Catherine, you know me, you know us, you know the kind of journalism that we do. We do the hardcore journalism. So never have I had the slightest thoughts of giving up. We keep pushing the boundaries. We keep going to the places that other journalists wouldn't want to go, and and in fact, I must say that so far, I'm not blowing my trumpet, but I'm saying that I am the only journalist who has been with the pathologist to disembowel the COVID-19 bodies. All of these in Ghana, we are doing this to ensure that we are able to understand the virus better, so we can maneuver and get ahead of it. And I'm the only journalist in Ghana who has been to the morgue to be with the pathologist, to go through the process, to tell us the experience, and that is the furthest you can go. That's how far any journalist can go when we talk about this whole COVID-19 pandemic, and I have been there. So no, I have never had the slightest thought of giving up because of this stigma and all that has happened within the period. We keep going and pushing the boundary. We want to get ahead of this pandemic. You remember the president has mentioned in his several address to the nation that we have to get ahead of the pandemic. And if we want to do that, it means all of us, as journalists, as scientists, as doctors, as case managers, as nurses, we have to work together. And I'm always available to work with the doctors who are always also. Dr. Kaba, I must mention that he's been wonderful. He's the leader of the Ghana's test team, the COVID-19 test team. He's been wonderful. He's always pulling me closer, bringing me on board whenever there is a development. He wants me to be the first to, because he's seen the kind of work that I do.
Very well. Thank you so much, Lateef. You're doing a great job. And that's why we have decided to celebrate you people, especially journalists, because when we talk about frontline workers in this pandemic, all we think of are health workers, caregivers, and other people who are out there that people see every day. And we forget that journalists are also out there putting their lives on the line to bring us information. And so we celebrate you today. Well done. Kudos, and don't give up. We pray that God will continue to protect you while you also keep observing the safety protocols. We will be coming to you later for more updates on this, and we hope that we all stay safe and be able to celebrate together when we finally overcome this pandemic.